This is WLUW 88.7 FM. We have with us at the WLUW Eric Basir. He is the Union Steward of Local 308 of the Amalgamated Transit Workers Union. Did I get that correct?
Close. Amalgamated Transit Union Local 308.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for the correction. I always it's so hard to remember the union names because they're so they want to get the description in there but sometimes it's a little long.
It's a tongue twister.
It is.
Say it real fast, 6 times. No.
Well, Eric, first of all, tell us about what your current job is and how did you become involved in the union?
I'm what's called a rail car repairer, and basically I'm a mechanic for CTA trains. It's my job to make sure that they are safe and they're working properly so that my coworkers and the riders can make it home. Mm-hmm. I've been active. I've actually joined the CTA just to be in a union job. So I've been an active member since 2018 when I was hired in February of 2018. And I became a steward, which is a volunteer rep, basically, and a delegate to our convention. And now I was elected to the executive board for the maintenance workers, the workers who repair and clean the trains. But because I'm on the executive board, we have the same contract, we're the same union. I also assist other workers in other departments.
What are the problems that usually arise that workers complain about to you?
The number one problem is we have no sick pay, no sick days. We have no sick days. We have no sick leave. In 2019, there was a city ordinance passed that required paid leave. CTA and for some reason our union presidents ignored it. Now, in July of 2024, it's now a state law to have paid leave. We are actually punished when we're sick. We're punished when we get hurt. We're punished when we get sick. I could go to work with an infectious disease. And this is how COVID-19 really spread. I can go to work and spread it all around. And everyone's going to get it. Why? Because I'm not going to get paid if I stay home. And not only that, I get written up. And if I get written up 6 times, if I call off 6 times, let's just say I'm a single parent, right? Or I'm taking care of elderly parents, grandparents, right? I call off 6 times, I'm fired. But I'm not getting paid for it. So we do have something called short-term disability that's available, but it's not paid leave. It's very different. It's basically if I get I need surgery on my knees or something, I can take what's short-term disability and I'll get paid $200 and something a week.
Which is about a portion. How much of a portion of your regular pay?
A third, right? So if I'm full-time, part-time, you got nothing. You're out of luck, period. But that's our problem here, is the majority of the write-ups, the majority of the strife, the demoralizing that's going on here for CTA workers is we are punished when we get sick.
What about the union contract? After these laws were passed that required a paid leave, were there union contracts that were negotiated and passed?
No. In fact, our vice president of our union argued with me when the CTA and our president, our vice president bargained for an extension of our contract. Our contract expired last year, December 31st of 2023. So they extended it and gave us a little pittance of a 4% raise. And then I said, well, why not have the paid leave in there too? Because that's a law now. Oh, well, that's not until July such and such. Well, July such and such will be here in a couple days. Can we do this? We're not talking about that now. In fact, when I was in one of our meetings, I said, so are you out bargaining? You talking about our paid leave that we're supposed to get? Not at this time. So apparently it's no concern to them. It is to me. and my coworkers.
Well, do you know if the vice president is doesn't he work for the CTA? Doesn't he need paid leave sometimes?
Well, the amazing thing about our union is when you're a president or a vice president or a secretary treasurer, the dues paid by the members release you from your CTA duties full time, and you get any kind of leave you want. Hey, if I'm sick, I'm sick. I can't come to work today. I could even be drunk and come to work. I could even keep alcohol in the union office. But I can't, if I'm at the CTA, I can't keep any booze in the locker. I can't get drunk, and I certainly can't get sick. So none of the union officers, and I'm a union officer, but I'm part-time. So I work full-time job, plus I do this part-time union thing. So there's no consequences for them. So I think they're out of touch. The short answer to your question is they're just out of touch. And we try to explain it to them, and they, for some reason, it's not important.
Well, let's discuss the current union contract now, because if that's the case, then the union contract that has been negotiated now, are you able to talk about the shortcomings? Are there anything that you really need that besides the paid leave that is not included in the current union contract?
Yeah. So one of the things is this second chance program. I call it the second class program. And this is baked into our contract for the bus and the rail side. And these are people who work as what's called car servicers. They clean the rail cars, and bus servicers who clean the buses, and janitors. Okay? These are people who might have had a felony, are having a hard time getting a job. Maybe they were in the shelter system because they were a woman that was dealing with abuse and whatnot, and homelessness. And we still have that, by the way. We have homeless CTA workers. I want everybody to know this. I'm not exaggerating, okay? And the Second Chance program, as it is, there is no guarantee when you're in this program that you're going to get a full-time job. But you're working 40 hours. You're doing the same work as the full-time janitors and servicers. In fact, on the rail side, you're doing even more. And you are going to be made to do something, especially if you are a male. And the vast majority of our second chance workers are black and Latino. And you're going to be put on what's called exterior wash duty. Imagine you have 8-car trains, 6-car trains. You are hand washing them with these big brushes, okay, from a ground level type. And the chemicals burn your skin. And the PPE they provide is insufficient. And, it's that you're not even supposed to do it, because according to the contract as it is, like you were asking, as it is, the second chancers aren't even supposed to do anything on the rail side except sweep the rail cars at the terminals, like at Howard, like at 95th, right? So the CTA has been violating the current contract for years. Union officials, my fellow union officials, have been silent about it for some reason. I don't know why. So I've been putting in class action grievances, protests, doing stuff like being on your show. Thank you, by the way, for having me.
Thank you for coming.
I really appreciate this. And we need to make the Second Chance program a real path, a real second chance. Because right now, as it is, after 12 months, they can dump these poor people on the street.
Do you know about how many they do dump?
Well, the contract limits the CTA to hiring 65. There can be no more than 65 of these people on the rail side, okay? Which is a lot, because a lot of them just quit, are fired, right? But some work really hard and they're loyal, and they just dump them. And they give them an email. Check this out. They get an email that says, "Congratulations, you completed the Second Chance program. Come to a celebration." So they have a party, but it's an exit interview. So they're trying to make them think like they're getting something. That they're not. They're tricking them. And some of them have been working for years between bus and rail, hoping to get full time. But if they have a write-up, they say, "Well, we can't turn you over to a full-time job." But the write-ups, check this out, And I want you and listeners to know, when a second chance worker is written up, they are written up at twice the severity of all the full-timers.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think it could be because they know a lot of these people have a hard time getting a job because of their record. They paid their dues to society for whatever crime they committed, right? But now you're taking advantage of them. See, Trudy and the listeners, I want you to understand, me and the rest of my coworkers at the CTA can, if we fall asleep on the job, that's called a behavioral violation, a 1-day suspension. 3 of those in 1 year, you're fired. Do you know what a second chancer gets?
Half of that.
Less. They get 1. So imagine let's just say you're a single mom and you're working at Howard Platform and you've been up all night with your sick baby, but you came to work. And then suddenly you're sitting down in between trains because there's no trains moving all the time, right? So you're just going to sit down in the booth and warm up. You accidentally doze off. And here comes a manager and they take a picture of you. You're gone. You're fired.
So the booth, the people that are in there, in the greeting booth, those are also the maintenance workers. Those are the second chance people.
No, that's a different department. Those are called customer service assistants or customer service representatives. Basically, there's also another 2-tier thing there. So that could be a part-timer or a full-timer. But check this out. Just like the second chancers, the customer assistants that are part-time can be scheduled or work 40 hours. But it's not full-time. You're working a 40-hour job, but you don't have full-time benefits. You don't get paid. So those who are going to work December 25th, by the way, they're just going to get straight 8 hours.
No overtime, in other words.
No. And I'm going to be off on December 25th. I get 8 hours of pay for holiday. But why do my union brothers and sisters not get that? Why doesn't anybody get that? Everybody who works on Christmas, December 25th is a national holiday, whatever it is, needs to be paid double. Why would we have that in our own union? Why would we have that disparity? So the CTA, what they have done, the CTA management, with the help of various politicians, have hijacked our union. They control our unions. I'm sitting here on this microphone to you, and I guarantee you, Trudy, my fellow union officers, almost all of them, are angry at me and are talking to their manager friends and saying, we got to get rid of that guy. But I'm just telling the truth.
Well, also, a little bit of the details. When they're working 40 hours a week, how much are they getting paid? Is there a wage tier? Are there tiers of wages? Are they making less than, let's say, a full-time person per hour? So
the second chancers and the CSAs, the part-time customer assistants that you see with the ticket machines, their top pay, depending on how many years they put in, is around 19. Okay, but they're coming in at 16 an hour. It's rough. I'm giving you rough numbers because I don't have it in front of me. Okay, but it is publicly available.
Okay, and
by the way, the full-time ones are making twice that. Okay. So they can afford to live a respectable life, you know. But these, by the way, these that I've described to you, a lot of them are doing Uber. Quite a few are dealing with homelessness. Okay, so you know they can't live.
So you're saying that unions, when the workers, these employees are bringing grievances to the union, they're being ignored. Have you tried helping them contact the Department of Labor, the state level, federal level? Because that's against the wage and hour laws too.
So when you said grievances, there's lots of different grievances. So do you mean grievances relating to absenteeism, being written up for being sick, Is that what you mean?
Yes, and also the paid leave as well. That's very important.
Right. Okay. So all of so we're being written up and fired because we get sick, basically.
Correct.
So we file grievances and say, hey, we want our job back. Hey, we want this write-up off our record. All right? So then what happens is we're told by our union leadership we can't tell the CTA what to do, but we can grieve it. So what we do is we do a grievance, and then me and my fellow officers debate over whether we're going to send this grievance to an arbitrator, a third party, so-called neutral person who will decide who lives and who dies, basically. That's a crappy way to run a union, to treat workers. So what happens is often the arbitrator will side with the CTA because they say, well, the person was sick, they didn't have FMLA, blah, 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 blah. That's just the rules, that's the contract. So what do we do? What alternatives? And that's what you're asking. I have submitted almost 20 unfair labor practice charges against the Chicago Transit Authority, mismanagement for various issues. And that is similar to this, okay? We have to make the CTA give us paid leave without being explicit, all right? And I have to be careful because I am just an executive. I'm not the president. Although I have said that's it. I'm running for president of Local 308 because I can't take it because now my job is at jeopardy because our own union leadership is helping management punish me for speaking up for people. So we have to join forces with the riders and build a grassroots movement to eliminate or replace all the part-time jobs with full-time jobs and get paid leave that exceeds what the state law is, because we are exposed to so much, especially our frontline workers. We get sick all the time, and we catch all kind of weird stuff too. Like me and my coworkers who repair the trains, we inspect these trains. We have a whole crew that inspects the trains. So what we do, I'll give you a specific example. We have to inspect the whole front part of a train. It's called a truck inspector. A truck is the parts of the wheels, and there's a coupler. This part of the train is actually a toilet for many riders who live on our trains. So as you see, there's the CTA trains are like a group home, a hotel, a shelter. Where do the people use a toilet? They go in between the rail cars. And so me and my coworkers, every day, who inspect these trains, we are exposed to human waste. Raw. And there's not enough servicers to clean the trains.
So in other words, between the two trains where the people go out those doors, they do their business there and then they go back into the train, but their business gets stuck on the trains.
Yes. And it gets into all the crevices of what's called the coupler. It's called the drawbar knuckle, where you connect the trains. Oh. And we are working in this stuff constantly. Our trains should be cleaned, exterior and interior, before we inspect them. So then we have inspectors in my department who are called car body inspectors. So they make sure everything where the passengers are is safe and everything's working properly, and we replace stuff. That too is filled with garbage, human waste, drugs, needles, and then they gotta kind of clean it up. But that's not their job. Their job is to inspect. But that's what they're doing. But because the CTA mismanagement cuts jobs and just lays off these second chancers instead of making them full-timers, we have very few people to do the job. One day during rush hour recently, we had one servicer on the platform at Howard. And we had maybe two at 95th. But by the time a train goes from Howard to 95th, it's filthy. And look, these servicers do a great job. And what's happening now is because we have new management coming in and all kinds of attention, you'll have 1 or 2 people in charge of a 6 or 8 car train. I'll say 6 on the green line and the whatnot in the pink line. But they're in charge. They have to clean 8 cars, and they're getting written up because they missed something.
How much time do they have to clean before the train has to start moving again?
It could be 2 minutes. It could be 8 minutes, depending. It's never enough because you don't have enough people. It takes one person to clean. See, the CTA gives us a bulletin. They give us rules and procedures to keep the train safe. So the servicers have a 2-page bulletin of what they must, all the stuff they must do to clean one rail car. That means seats, floors, stanchions, check for graffiti, check for broken stuff, and mop. You tell me, could you do that in 2 minutes?
No way, not for one car. Can't even do that for one car, much less than 6 or 8 cars.
One of our best servicers on the platform, I saw him on my way home. He said, "Oh, Brother Eric, somebody pooped all over the seats over here. I cleaned it all up, but I almost threw up." And I couldn't even tell that there was anything. But that's all he could do. He could just do that one car. He just had to get all that poop. But this is typical. But then, is the manager going to write him up because he missed the other car? You see what I mean? And that's what they do. Check this out. We have such managers that are so evil. Here we had a servicer. God bless her. Another one of these hard workers. She used to be a train operator. And she'd been at the CTA a long time. And she and her teammates on the midnight, they do what's called GC, general cleaning. So they clean imagine they clean the rail cars on the inside from the top to the bottom. And they compete with each other. Okay, how clean did you get yours? And they inspect each other's work. One day she's sick. She said, "I got to go to work. I'm sick, but I need to get paid. I don't want to get written up." So she goes to work. And then she's so sick, she can't finish. She tells the manager, "I got to go home. I'm too sick." So she uses her FMLA privileges, which allows her to leave work, but of course not get paid, but not get punished. But you're not getting FMLA if you have less than a year, by the way. So she goes, quality control comes. This is a different department. They inspect her train. They give her an 89. That's the score, 89 out of 100%. If you look at their scorecard, it says meets expectations. Well, it seems the manager didn't like that score. So the manager went in there and said, found this and found that and this and that, and took pictures of everything. Close-up pictures, you could see the dust bunnies and the molecules. They were so detailed. Wrote the poor woman up. Wrote her up. But the quality control said meets expectations. And the woman was sick. She knew she was sick.
Did the quality control person know that the woman was sick?
No. But remember, quality control passed her. She passed her. 89 is meets expectations. But the manager just didn't like that.
What about the manager? Did the manager know that she was sick?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And we went back and forth about it. We got I got very upset. And she said, "Well, at Midway, I already let you get someone off who was sick. Now you want this?" I'm like, "What? You trying to make deals with me?" Here, which this person was talking about at Midway, another servicer who happened to be a second chancer, by the way, he was hospitalized with food poisoning. Because, there's no good places to eat around any of these CTA terminals for the workers on their lunch. So he went into this place, ate some food. Next day, stomach was turned inside out, went to the hospital, couldn't go to work, got written up because he called off sick. He didn't say, "I'm not going to work." He just said, "I'm sick. I can't come to work." So they wrote him up. I said, "Look, he was sick. Here's his doctor note." The manager said, "Okay, fine. No write-up." And now they're going to use that to hurt this person. "Hey, I made a deal." It wasn't a deal. It's called human rights.
So
Excuse me.
No. It's what does the CTA stand to benefit from treating the workers this way? How? Let's say they treat the workers better, and then they get quality service, quality customer service. What does and now there's so many problems, unclean cars and not enough customer service. What does the CTA stand to gain?
Short term, they stand to gain huge savings. Because the number one cost for any company, especially a transportation organization such as the CTA, the number one cost is labor. But without that labor, what happens to the buses and the trains and the stations, right? They fall apart. Nothing gets done. So it's going to cost a lot to pay us, to give us our benefits, to treat us right. But they got to cut costs because that's the goal. And eventually, the trend is to privatize. I have no evidence that the CTA is on a mission to privatize. But this is the natural evolution of things. So it will not make things better. It will look better financially in the short term. So they have to gain short-term financial gain. And that's the way it is when they cut jobs.
Well, I think, I don't know if you mentioned it, it's been 30 years since they cut the two-person operator for the rail cars. Mm-hmm. But that's long-term. 30 years is a long time.
Yeah, and it's gotten worse, right?
Exactly.
Has service improved? But they sure saved a lot of money by killing that second job, okay? And you know who else benefited? Their partners in the union office who really didn't work for the members. We had a 3-term president, Jerry Williams, who did that. And after he was voted out of office, the CTA rewarded him with the managerial job. So my predecessors in my department, as a union rep, the union rep before me became a manager. The union rep before him became a manager. You know? And this is the way it goes. They beat us over the head. You have to maintain good relationships with management, but management doesn't maintain good relationships with the workers. They disrespect us. They don't even follow their own collective bargaining agreement. They don't even follow the law.
So it seems as if it's understood that as long as they please the CTA, then when they are no longer with the union in the managerial job, then they'll get a very cushy job at the CTA.
Absolutely. And that's told to me because I have write-ups on my record, retaliatory write-ups, because I defend the workers. I was on lunch, and my coworkers at another shop were complaining to me that the manager was threatening them. He said, do not complain to the union. You talk to me first. And if I find out anyone does that, I'm writing you up. It's illegal. It's against the law, by the way. Mm-hmm. They told me that. I immediately emailed the general manager while I was on lunch, not sitting working on the train, not repairing the train while I was on lunch. And I said, please give me the reports about the manager for quality inspection that the workers are complaining about. She refused. I said, I will file an unfair labor practice charge if you do not give me these records because that's the law. 40 minutes later, I had a safety violation for using my cell phone.
But you were on lunch.
Yeah. Now, we have a thing in maintenance where we use an hour, so we're jobbed on to a lunch for 30 minutes and then jobbed on to 30 minutes for whatever repair we were doing. But I was not working. I mean, they all do it. All the union reps are emailing. The management at the CTA has these rules where they'll write you up with a safety violation for using your phone, but the manager's calling you on your phone while you're working. Telling, hey, I need you to go to track 8 and check the window. Hey, I need you to do this. Hey, I got statements from workers with records showing management giving them instructions on what to do, offering them overtime on their phones while on the clock. Now, all of a sudden, a union rep you don't like is emailing you, and now you're going to enforce the rule. So,
yes, well, you've got the phone records of your like the timestamp of the call and of the incoming call, and any of those incoming calls too. Yes,
and we use that, and that's in my grievances and various issues. But it's not about me so much as the CTA workers that I defend.
You mentioned that the Howard station second chance workers are treated especially shabbily. Is it like more shabbily than at the other stations? What is it about the Howard station that's happening there?
Well, Howard is bigger, but it's the same all over. And the poor second chancers, they can't pick a location. See, when you have a union job, you got this luxury called picking a schedule, bidding for jobs, bidding for a schedule. You can pick, as you move up in seniority, no matter if the manager likes you or not, you can get better and better schedules that fit your lifestyle. Second chancers don't get that. They get sent anywhere. So you could be at Howard one week and you'll be at Rosemont the next week, or 63rd National, whatever, Harlem. So Howard, I want to give an example. And again, it's not so much the location, but it is big, so you have a lot more stuff going on. So here's one of our second chancers. He's been applying for full-time jobs at the CTA, rejection after rejection after rejection. That's another thing, these poor people. They're always applying for jobs. Same with the CSA, the customer assistant. Same with the flagman. They're applying for jobs and being declined constantly. So he's applying.
Before I forget, CSA and the flagmen, they're not unionized either?
These are all union.
They are.
They are in right here, this union. Okay. Believe it or not. Isn't that bizarre that we have people in our own union living in poverty? You got some that are living decent and the rest living and have no house. It's crazy. But anyways, and that's because we have these part-time jobs. But here is a man, he was applying for jobs and struggling. He did everything he was told, and he has some health issues with blood pressure and whatnot. And he's sitting down in between the trains, not in between, but in between trains coming through. So he's in that little break area for them to sit and warm up, and he dozes off, but he never woke up.
Oh, so he's the one that we saw in the news that died at the Howard station?
That was about 2 years ago. Yeah. And he didn't have anything. So he couldn't he didn't have no benefits, nothing, And it's just, there was another one on the blue line. I forgot her name. Same thing. She was part-time, but working 40 hours and doing overtime. Not getting overtime pay, though. Just to pay the bills. These people are working 60, 70 hours just to pay the bills. And she died right there in her booth on the blue line. A lot of us are dying. We're sick and dying because we got no health care. We're working just to live.
And again, the second chance workers, are they in the union or not?
They are.
They are.
It's a union bargain for a job. They're in the contract. Isn't that disgusting? That's why I've rewritten it. I've submitted this as contract proposal items, and they don't like it because they're like, yeah, CTA is never going to give us. Of course they're never going to give us anything because we don't demand it like a real union.
But even sections that are written in the contract, they're not being followed.
Not at all. I'll give you a great example. So in our contract, and I got little things I could tell you about each worker. It'll fascinate you. Each craft, each department. But in our contract, we have language that says there's a night premium. So that means if you work a PM shift or a midnight shift, you get paid a little more. It says all, right? It's explicit. It doesn't say except this department and that department. Well, the stockroom clerks who make sure that me and my coworkers have the parts we need to repair these raggedy trains, right? They don't get night premium. So they could be working midnights or be on what's called a pool job. They could be working midnights one week, mornings the next, PMs the next. They're not getting any kind of extra pay, but they're giving up their life energy on these midnights, but they're not getting it. The CTA it's in the contract. And their excuse, well, we don't do that because they're graded pay and they're not, because It doesn't say that in the contract. And why would we as a union say one group gets it and the other doesn't? Because in our own union, in our Constitution, it says we all have to have equal treatment. I'll give you one more. Article 1.1 in the contract says the CTA must provide the best possible working conditions. Another part of the contract, it says they must provide sanitary working conditions. All right? Do you know there are stations on the CTA line that don't have toilets for the workers?
Can you tell us which ones?
Yeah. Let's go to the brown line. Real bourgeois brown line, like they say. We have Kedzie, Francisco, Rockwell. I might have missed the order. 3 stations, I think it's the 4th. Then we have some on the other lines. We got the purple line. We got Noyes. We got Foster. No toilet. Now, let's just say you're pregnant. Let's say you're very pregnant. 6 months, 7 months, 8 months. You're going to have to use the toilet quite a bit because you're sharing space with somebody else in your body. And now you got to hold it and wait for a train to come. But on the brown line, guess what? On the purple line, guess what? After certain hours, stations close. But you got to stay. If the trains aren't running, how do you get from one station to the terminal to use a toilet? You have to call the dispatcher, we call him controller, and they have to send a manager or a supervisor to pick us up and give us a ride. You not following the contract. You won't get these people a good, clean area, especially all the women that work. A lot of women work in that department. It's horrific.
And they're working at those stations without a toilet for maintenance and what other jobs?
Well, that would be customer service assistant. The maintenance, we're generally at the terminals. So if anything, our bathrooms just are filthy and disgusting. Sometimes we don't even have soap. Because you see, the CTA, they don't think that we need janitors in our shops and terminals. We got hundreds of people working in these places. We have no janitors. So they make us clean it. They make me and my service or coworkers clean these giant facilities. How? It's not even our job. Janitorial, custodial work is a specific type of job. Yet, when you go to CTA headquarters, they got lots of janitors. And it's clean. Smells great when you go in there. Oh, and there's soap. I went to one place that had non-union workers in it. And they were telling me, yeah, we put our money together to buy soap. So I'm like, that's illegal. Well, he said, well, we're not union. I said, it's still illegal. Well, no. But when I speak up about it, like, this guy, he's complaining all the time.
Okay, so which positions are non-union at the CTA?
Oh, there's quite a lot. Of course, managerial, and there's quite a few office type jobs, but there's still union office related works like our clerks, but it's like a lot of us are, it's so sad. A lot of us are just stopping. We're not even paying dues. A lot of my coworkers just said enough. I'm not even going to pay dues. I'm like, don't do that. And because you're complaining about a problem that I'm speaking up about, we can change that. But when you stop paying dues, you don't have voting privileges. And they're like, we want you to be our president. And I'm like, well, you can't vote for me if you're not paying dues. So it's really bad. And I want to emphasize it. I'm not just complaining as a worker, right? I'm complaining for the riders. Because it doesn't matter. You hear about CMAP, right? They want to merge RTA, PACE, and CTA into one body, right? And we want to see performance and we want to see service improve. And you can merge us with Walmart and Target and Boeing and whatever. Ain't nothing going to get better at the CTA as long as the workers are treated like crap. That's the problem. And when you look at the CMAP and you look at the law that they wrote, there is not one single thing about our working conditions. Nothing. Nothing about full-time jobs. Nothing about real training facilities. Do you know, as a mechanic, as a repairer of the rail cars, we don't even have mock-up trains to train on. They got to train me how to change motors on a little mock-up. But then you don't get to change all the other stuff on a real mock-up. And it doesn't work. And then the instructors are paid just about the same as us. So they can't recruit experienced mechanics, repairers to become instructors because they're not paying them. They're not even paying the maintenance instructors equal with the other instructors. So what? Because we're maintenance, our instructors shouldn't be paid the same as the other instructors?
This is WLUW 88.7 FM. So which instructors are getting fully paid and paid adequately?
Right now, it's what's called rail operations instructors, and they deserve it. They deserve it because they're teaching. We all deserve it. I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but they're the ones teaching the operators, the switchmen, the towermen, the customer assistants, and they're teaching other people. They're teaching all departments what's called rail safety. Because, we work around 600 volt DC, and it's exposed third rail. By the way, did you ever wonder why such a large city as Chicago has public transportation with exposed third rail?
It's not supposed to be exposed?
No, that's ancient. That's from the early 1900s technology. You look at New York City, as old as it is, the third rail's covered. And we have all kind of accidents that you never hear about. Yeah. All kind of. You ever wonder why people, they trespass on the rails and they die? It's because they get caught on the third rail. Even workers. We had a worker. Check this out. Oh, this is sad. We had a worker. He was a customer assistant. Just turned over full time after working part time for like 10 years. Ridiculous. So he's at one of the elevated loop stations, and some of them have no toilets. So he needs to use a toilet, so he makes the mistake, or he needs to go to the other side of the platform or something. And he made the foolish decision to step across the third rails, okay? But he fell. And this was at Adams and Wabash, which is right after a curve on the loop, one of the loop curves. And he fell and got trapped and was electrocuted, obviously. But this is when the stations were just about closed, okay? And then here comes a train and it runs him over. So if we had covered the third rail, no, he shouldn't have done that. No, he shouldn't have crossed. Yeah, that was wrong. But let's talk about the hazard. And that's the thing that the CTA mismanagement doesn't want to do. They don't want to eliminate hazards. They leave these open, gaping hazards, and then they write us up when we get hurt. One more example. In the shop where I work at, Howard Shop, one of the largest shops, we have what's called posts. They're called spin posts. And we have to put these posts up, and then we lift the train above our heads, and then rest the train on the posts so that we can inspect the wheels and the motors as they move. Right?
How could you lift a train? A train is really heavy.
It's a lift. It's hydraulic jacks, right? Okay, it's the jacks that sometimes work. So they go on the posts, but these posts, some of them are jammed into the ground. And we complain that we can't get them out. So one of our coworkers tore up his whole back. He's been out for months trying to lift that thing out. And then they say, oh, okay, now we'll fix it. But they're going to write him up. Sometimes they do that. They'll write you up. A second chancer. Do an exterior wash. Slips. Falls, hurts himself, goes to the doctor. He says, hey, I slipped and fell and hurt myself. Oh, we're writing you up with a safety violation. One more. Mechanic, coworker of mine in another shop. We install what's called sleet scraper assemblies. Another problem because of the third rail that's exposed. If we didn't have an exposed third rail, we wouldn't have to deal with these things. So he's installing it, blah, blah, blah. And boom, he smashes his finger. Smashes it. He goes right to the manager, says, hey, man, smashed my finger. He's following the rules, Manager gets the emergency room. He calls the union. Hey, this man's been hurt. Ambulance comes. They take do. He gets a 2-year safety violation. So I'm sitting in the meeting with this stinking scumbag manager who used to be a union instructor, by the way. Used to be in the union. See what I'm saying? What's going on here? I said, why are you writing this man up? Because he didn't follow proper procedure. I said, what's the procedure? Can you show me the procedure for installing this part? He says, there's no such thing. Oh, so now there's no procedure, nothing in writing. Now you're going to punish this man for 2 years, get him close to being fired, because he reports to you that he's injured, but you have no procedure to follow. This is what we're dealing with, Trudy. So you're saying, you know why the service sucks? Do you know why you can't get trains?
Demoralized employees.
There you go. I could go on and on. I'll be real quick. We don't even have laptops as repairs. Our trains, the 5,000 series of trains you see here on the red line, the green line, the pink line, these are all computer-operated trains with computer brains. We'll have one shop with like 3 laptops. And they don't work. Half of them don't work. We're putting stuff together with zip ties. Zip ties. Like plastic little zip.
Yeah. Like what are you putting together with zip ties?
Yeah, duct tape. You go in the basement of some of these shops. There's whole pipes with conduits being exposed with water and taped up. They're cutting. Cut. For what? To give Dorvell Carter $300,000 salary? Right? You have again, these poor operators, up and down, back and forth, trip after trip. They don't even have time to inspect the train. Every operator has to, quote unquote, prepare the train for service. It's a multi-page standard operating procedure. I think it's SOP 8076. You got to do all this stuff. They don't even do it because they can't. Because it's always load and go. They call it load and go. Crazy. I told you about the clerks. Check this out. We got clerks that work at the terminals. And these people make the schedules for the work schedules and line people up and make sure this person's here and that person's there. They run the administrative parts of the CTA transportation. If their relief calls off sick or doesn't show up, they have to stay. They're forced. So they're working 8 hours. Now they got to work 16. They're going to get their OT, but they have to stay. This is crazy. We got the switchmen, the people who bring the trains from the yard to the terminal and take the trains from the terminal to the yard. They also will do the thing with lowering sleet scrapers and all kind of other stuff. Just the other night, we had one of them at Midway Terminal. One.
How many would you need at Midway?
At least you got to have the bare minimum, too. You never have anybody out there by themselves in the dark, in the yard. But they're keeping it like this. The CTA saves money by keeping it like this. But that person, who knows, they might have been working overtime. We got towermen. These people work in the towers where they make sure the right train leaves and the right train comes into the terminal. They don't get reliefs. And their towers, sometimes they're in these little booths. And there's mice and rats. A little teeny wino. It's like they're in an outhouse. It's disgusting. We have our universal rail supervisors, our terminal supervisors. These are like foremen. They're not management necessarily. They're in our union. They got them doing a train operation. But when there's an emergency, there's no supervisor to help make sure that we restore service. We got the janitors. You're a janitor at the CTA rail. You got 3 stations to take care of in 8 hours.
Wow. And then
Imagine
what about Howard? How many janitors?
Well, if you pick Howard, I'm that's out of my department, but I believe from my conversations with them, it's 1 at Howard. At least you'll have that station only, but I could be wrong. But when it comes to the other stations, they're smaller. But come on, how do you mop? How do you sweep? You can't. You just pull garbage. It's crazy. It makes no sense. We have what's called a power wash crew of janitors, right? And they're working to midnight, and they're literally power wash stations. It's a couple times a year. How in the world do you keep anything clean, power washing it? It's a public transportation, public. so you know what's on the ground. A couple times a year? No, it's got to be every week. And it smells nice. Riders like it to smell nice. And why? Every time you go in, it smells like a toilet.
There was one question that I wanted to ask you. Those second chance workers, when they're using those chemicals, and they're using it, lifting their hands, doesn't all those chemicals, even if they have gloves, they would drip down and go into their sleeve and into their elbows, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And isn't that how they get burned?
Yes. And they get written up, and then they lose their chance to turn over full time. And I'll fight for their grievance. I'll speak up. And I'll say, this isn't even in the contract. Why are y'all making them do this? I can't even get our own union president to condemn this, Trudy. What the heck is wrong with these people?
It seems as if it's greed. What about the different union presidents that came along? Did each of them that replaced the earlier one, did they try to do better, or when they got their position, they became corrupted?
Oh, they did better. They got higher salaries.
Well, I'm asking if they did better for their constituents, the employees that are part of the union.
In my opinion, no. And it's because they believe that the union is a personality cult. And once they win office, it's theirs. But what they don't understand is the union, when you're an official, it's not yours. You work for the members who pay you. And you have to take what they want and make it happen with them. Like a team. A union's actually a real team. So when I'm an executive board, when my coworkers in my department tell me they want something, I'm like, okay, guys, how do you want to do it? And they come up with stuff, and I'm like, all right, maybe this, what about that? And I'm like, okay, we'll do this. And we work it out, and we try. And sometimes it works. Like we took over our last union meeting, all of us. You know, we literally took it over and directed our union. Now, unfortunately, those who have established good relationships with management in our presidency and vice presidency are upset. But we need to stop being what's called business unionists. We have to be revolutionary unionists. We have to give the union to the people who work at the CTA.
Well, that's the whole purpose of the union,
Exactly.
is to represent the workers.
Exactly. And it is the workers. And it says that right in our constitution of our own union. You know, it's not where you elect the boss, but that's what we're taught. You're going to vote for me and I'm going to be your boss. And you better do what I say. And if you don't, I'm going to make sure your write-up stays on your record for a long, 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 long time.
So what could, besides improving the union, the second chancers, they're in a very bad predicament. What is your advice to them?
Oh, my God. I tell them every time I see them, I say, I want you to apply for full-time jobs at the CTA every day. And I want you to forward any email rejections to me because I keep track. And then if it's time for them to let you go and they decide to let you go, I have documentation to say, you've been discriminating against this person. You know, and it's weak way to fight. Real unions fight like real unions fight historically. And we don't do that. But I'm in a position right now where I'm limited, you know, in what I can say. Now, if I was president, I'd be saying some other stuff.
Mm-hmm. What kind of allies do you have? I know that people who need your help, they want you to achieve your objectives. But what allies do you have in this fight?
Well, one of the biggest allies we have right now, as far as organizational wise, is the Fix the CTA campaign by the Chicago DSA, Democratic Socialists of America. They have gotten behind CTA workers 100%. And it's an honor to work with people like that. Also, the writers and people like you. You know, people like you are very important. That's why when you said what you said, I'm like, I'm gonna do whatever I can to get down here, because when you say you want to hear about what's going on, I want to tell you, because ain't no union official at the CTA gonna talk like I talk, right? It's not that I'm special. It's just that I ain't afraid of none of these suckers. So it's like, you know, oh, there's a window. Let me throw a rock through it. Yeah, I'm that type, you know, but I'm not malicious. That was when I was younger. But I see falsehood. I see deception. I see thievery against us and the writers. Because I'm telling you, Trudy, the writers are suffering so much. They just don't write because I just don't want to deal with the madness.
Yes, we hear that a lot. And we've written the CTA for at least decades, and then we know how it is and how service has deteriorated, and writers are asking us what could be done. Yeah. They don't know all these stories behind the CTA, what you're telling us today. Also, what about other mainstream media? Are they helpful to your cause?
Well, I, without being too specific, I have made myself, since I was elected as executive board, I have reached out, and I continue to reach out to various media, and I respond immediately. What our president won't say, I will say. I'm not going out naming specific managers and stuff. Like, I don't need to do that. I might say Dorvell Carter or Donald Bonds or something. He's the second in command, you know. But I'm not trying to get people to hunt them down or slash their tires or anything like that. You know, I just want us to have better working conditions, you know.
Which is very, very difficult. It's like a fight against all odds. It's the CTA is not helpful. They're trying to save money, and they're exploiting the workers, it seems, when they need to help the workers, to help the CTA. If they treat the workers better, they'll have much more reliable service, and the customers will be happy, and they'll probably get more ridership. And it's instead of a vicious circle, it will be a beautiful circle.
I agree. And you know, just the thing about these 8-car trains on the Red Line, you know, growing up, you know, we had 2-car trains and 4-car trains at various non-peak hours. What they're doing is they're being cheap. But by being cheap, they're encouraging vagrancy. They're encouraging the shootouts. They're encouraging the open drug markets. They're encouraging the violence. You know, like on the Blue Line, them 4 people in that mass murder, those 4 homeless people. You know, what in the world are we doing as a society where we're just pouring trillions into war? Places that you and I may never visit are being bombed into oblivion as we speak with our tax dollars. But we can't fund making sure everybody got a place to live. Everybody can have an education. Everybody can have some health care. Everybody can have access to public transportation, free public transportation. We can fund all of that easily. And when you do that, when you start taking care of human beings, when you make sure that human beings have jobs and health care and education, you start bringing down the crime levels. So now what they're doing, they're saying, oh, with the CTA, instead of cutting down these 8 cars and having 2 and 4 cars with 2-person crews, right? They just keep it going. And then they say, well, we're going to have the police force. We're going to get a police force. All the union presidents, we're going to get a CTA police force. Okay, fine. So we get the CTA police force. We have the security. We're going to arrest people. We're going to shoot people. Whatever we got to do, whatever to make us safe, right? The working conditions still suck.
Well, if all that money that they spend into the security, wouldn't that be in your estimation, would that be enough to restore the two person operator crew on the railway lines?
Oh, easily. But we're not saying let's make the CTA workers, security and police. But by our presence being uniformed, it discourages people to walk. They usually go somewhere else.
Exactly. Yes. Tell us about the plight of the train operator that's on duty by themselves.
So I'll give you an example. Here's a train operator, and I was a train operator. As a flagman, I was a customer assistant too. Before that, you leave the station, and then suddenly your train stops between stations. You have 8-car trains. Let's say it stops between 69th and 63rd on the red line, or between Sheridan and Wilson. Let's say elevated. Let's do that, Sheridan and Wilson, because we're a Rogers Park audience here. Sheridan and Wilson. Your train suddenly stops. You see on your panel, the door is open. The door is open. You're in between on the elevated. So you're thinking, what are you thinking happened, Trudy?
Well, how is he the person going to check which door is open?
Yeah. And you might have also be thinking, did somebody just step out of my train and splatter themselves on the ground? So the train operator has to now let the controller know, the dispatcher, what's going on. They got to walk all the way. Let's say it's the 7th car, the door opened. Walk all the way down there. Walk past people asleep, people using drugs, people assaulting people, people defecating, people having breakdowns, right? Human waste. And then operator throws up because the smell is so strong because somebody has decaying flesh, because they have no medical care. And they get through to the next this is the operator. And then they finally get there and they look and they see some drunk guy with a can of beer about to step off the train into the darkness. They got to call this in and say, no, step away. And then that person says, get the F away from me, B. Let's say you're a woman. It's a woman operator. I'm going to kill you. Look, please step away. So now you got someone, you a woman operator, female operator. Now you already threw up on your way to the back. Now you're delayed too, by the way. You're late, and you got to pick your child up to take them to school in the morning. And you're working midnight, and you're still part-time. Yeah.
Train operator?
Yes. Because flagger, you have to come in flagger, which is a part-time job, one of those 40-hour part-time jobs at the CTA. Mm-hmm. You got to come in that way, and then you'll be until the CTA decides to make you full-time. Oh. Yeah, they've been doing it now within 30 days, but it's still, let's just say. And then you get there, and they cursed you out, they threatened you, called you a B, and finally they sit down and fall asleep. 10 minutes later, you close your door. You reset your door. You tell the controller it's reset. Now everyone's, operator, what's the problem? Operator, what's the problem? And now you're sick to your stomach, and you have to walk through and you got to pass the same person with decaying flesh, with no medical care, no home. Throw up again. Go through. This. I'm not making this stuff up. Then the guy's puffing on crack cocaine or some nasty marijuana, and you have asthma. And now suddenly you start getting an asthma attack. But you make it. You make it to the terminal. And what happens? Operator, could you do a report to manager about what happened? And now you might get written up for causing a delay. Because maybe you forgot something. Yeah. That's one example. But that usually happens every night.
Wow. Yeah, because we've seen Bill and I, when we're on the train, he takes me from to another car when someone starts smoking crack.
Yeah, they got their loud and their crack and I'll be on the train in uniform. Maybe I could be hiding out somewhere and I say, "Excuse me, sir, could you please put that out?" But then I can hide, right? If I'm an operator, I'm in my safe zone. It's real hard for them to get me. But if you do it, you saw what happened up here in Morris when a woman saw a man smoking. He pushed her in the. Who you telling me not to smoke? This happened a couple years ago. Pushed her right in the tracks. You know, because he was smoking, or no, I think he was urinating or something on the platform. And she, why you do that? You know, it's crazy. So the riders, we have to understand, nothing will get better if the riders don't want to come, and we won't have jobs. And then what they'll do is they'll say, well, just be quiet, be happy, because we want to get funding because we're at a fiscal cliff. I'm sure you heard that, right? Fiscal cliff? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what that is? Sky is falling. Every contract is the same thing. Everything. There's something. Before that, it was the pandemic. And they actually, the CTA actually fired lots of coworkers because they weren't vaccinated. They fired them. Not like, hey, you got to get tested. They fired them. And then they say, well, we don't have a workforce. I got the vaccination. I'm not telling people not to do the vaccination. But my point is, what are you doing? You firing people and you can't even keep people. What kind of madness is this?
Why are they in such a rush to fire people? Is it that all the new people that they hired, they could pay less? What? It seems kind of ridiculous because you, as an employer, you would want to avoid turnover. And then if you have workers who have been on the job for a long time, they would have more experience and you could rely on them more. Why be so in a rush to get rid of workers that might have more experience than the people that you are bringing in? And then you have to spend money training your... Well, I do see your point. There's not much training going on oftentimes, too. So,
but there's definitely training, but it's short. Yeah, it's quick.
There seems to be not enough, though. For instance, for those poor second chancers, they have to do work that they're not supposed to do, and they probably have the minimum training for all those that dangerous cleaning with those chemicals.
Yeah, and they're punished mercilessly. And it saves money. Again, it's a short-term thing to do what they do. Look at it this way. At the CTA, in my opinion, we have a really good pension. So for every $1 that I contribute, the CTA contributes $1. Okay? So it's a defined benefit. So I'm getting this thing, right?
In other words, you could choose how much to contribute, and then the CTA will match it?
No. No, that's a 401k, and the CTA, we do have that, but the CTA doesn't match it. But for every $1 we put in, they match it, because they take it out of our check.
Got it.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So for 1 year, though, forget that. I came in part-time. There's no pension for me. No pension contribution. So I did that. I was part-time 2 years. So for 2 years, the CTA saved pension costs. Okay? Then, after I became full-time, I had to wait a year before I could start being in the pension. So now they got 3 years. You follow me? Mm-hmm. Huge savings. Now, I'm a train operator. Safety violation number 1. Safety violation number 2. Safety violation number 3. I'm out. In 1 year. Let's say, or within 2 years, because it stays on your record for 2 years. They don't have to pay my pension. You see what I mean? So the more they do this, the more they get rid of the full-timers. Like you said, replace them with part-timers. No pension, no dental, no life insurance, other benefits, short-term disability, and of course, overtime and the holiday. It's huge savings, huge savings. And it's so bad that in my department, they want to expand the Second Chance program. They say it's not, and our union vice president got upset at me and went off at me. And I heard the management say, they said, we want to let the second chancers work in the mornings. See, the contract says they have to work in the midnights and the PM shifts. We want them to make in the mornings so that the full-timers could have more weekends off. Some kind of crap. They're coming up with all kinds of reasons to keep the Second Chance program going as it is. instead of just turning them over. And it's not, and they call them apprentices. It's not even a real apprentice program, like electricians and machinists and carpenters.
Yes, in other words, they're not learning anything that is relevant for a full-time job.
Nah, you're an apprentice. You have to have, a journeyman with you. Mm-hmm. And you won't. You won't. You're going to be out there on your own. It's a joke.
So the second chancers, all they could is just keep on applying for full-time positions. But what could they do to improve their chances to get that full-time position?
Oh, my God. I could say merit. Just come to work and don't ever miss anything and don't ever question the manager. But it's not the case. If they don't like you, they're not turning you over.
You've given me a lot of examples of bad managers. What about the good managers? Are there any? And what do they have obstacles because they are a good manager?
You're going to ask me that question, Trudy. Oh, you asked a hard question. Okay, so
well,
let me put it this way. No, you're good. You're fine. I just gotta. It's a tough question. There's a few good managers. There's a few. I call them managers. The rest I call mismanagers. And they get upset. Why are you calling us managers? You're calling us names. I said, okay, do you mismanage? No, I manage. Okay, then I'm not talking about you then. But I don't need to name them. They know who they are. But yes, the few that I have known that don't give me a hard time as a union rep. Because I know if workers are complaining to me about a manager, I know they're scum. But I'll have workers that say, that manager, we're okay with him. I'm like, okay, if he's okay with you, he's okay with me. Mm-hmm. So we got no problems. But then there's managers where I do have some problems with, but they deal with me properly. And when we go at it, we go at it. I'll have some that'll say, after I would say what I say, they say, yo, mama. I'm like, oh, my mama. Okay, all right. You still wrong as hell. Writing up a man for pointing at a piece of paper because you don't like him. So the few, I could count 2 that I've met who I've watched refuse to write people up. Okay? They aren't going to go anywhere. And I've said to them, because they talk to me. Yeah, man, I see what you're doing, man. This, and this, you should know. And they'll tell me something. And I say, why don't you come to our side? Yeah, that way they can't fire you. Become one of us. Become an operator, become a whatever, a clerk, a mechanic. And they'll be like, yeah, just because you're not going to make it, man. You're not going to make it.
So in other words, the managers are not allowed to be in the union?
Oh, no. No, of course not. But what I'm saying is come and just quit that job and become one of our jobs. Do a union job. Because some of these managers really just want to do a job. But they don't want to hurt people. I'm like, but you're a manager. You're going to have to do it. They are going to break you. Or you're going to become like them. Because you're going to have to do it. You're going to have to write up someone because they were sick.
Oh, got it.
Because they're going to come down on you. And they'll walk you right out. See, at the CTA, the culture is blame the worker, elevate the tyrant. So the people who are the hardest on the worker, they tend to move up. Because why? Because of numbers. You fire people, what happens? You save money. Especially the full-timers.
So they probably have, they track how much money they're able to save by firing the workers.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
And what about union busting in a way? What kind of, what does the CTA do in the way of union busting?
Yes. So The first thing the number one thing they do is they discourage the workers from grieving, using grievance process, and from contacting the union. So we will have in our department, perfect example, we have this senior manager. I call her Manager Hell, because that's all. Every time this person shows up, it's hell, and I never hear anything but hell coming from this person. And dealing with this person is like hell. As a union rep, it's like, ugh. This person will write someone up. I will help them file a grievance. And this manager will call the worker up on the phone and say, I see you filed a grievance. Well, I noticed you've had some absences that were excused, so maybe we're not going to be able to excuse any more absences. That's totally illegal. That's union busting. When they say, don't call me, they'll tell people, hey, you call that Basir, but he don't know what he's talking about.
What about then the follow-up grievance? Would that help the first grievance, since there's the follow-up, the union busting grievance?
It's different. It changes you change domains in a sense, because now you're just breaking the law. So that's an unfair labor practice. Oh. So based on unfair labor practice, we could see, like what some Amazon workers are doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You see, but you need union leadership that's willing to help that happen. And right now, as it stands, once you do the grievance and the manager threatens you and you decide, okay, I'm going to back off, you withdraw the grievance. That's the problem. Or they come to me and say, you know what, I just don't want to talk to you anymore because they're going to come after me. Mm-hmm. Union busting. Big time at the CTA.
And just to clarify, the federal wages and hours, and when for those to move up and complain to the Federal Department of Labor, that doesn't help in this case. It actually would be state. Okay, state.
It would be, for our case, it'd be state, mm-hmm. And it does help. It does help, but the real way to change this is through collective action, like a real union. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's okay. So let's put it this way: if you have your all these employees that are listening now, what could they do to help you help them?
Fight back, brothers and sisters. Fight back. Enforce your contract. Come to your membership meeting. Take it over. Let's take our union back from the CTA. That's what I'm appealing to my coworkers. Because the CTA controls our union. We got to take it over.
Have the union let's say you. What about public commenting at the CTA board meetings? Did anybody ever do that? And would that help?
Yeah. I have coworkers that I work with in the Chicago Transit Justice Coalition, different departments, bus and rail, and yeah, we definitely do that kind of thing. I wish I could do more of it, but I work full time at the CTA. Mm-hmm. If I was president, it'd be different. I would definitely be all over the place, mm-hmm. because I think we can make the CTA the best public transportation system in the entire country. Mm-hmm. I believe it.
Right, if with the correct training and enough people with fair wages, if it's a very it's a bustling and mm-hmm. happy transportation system, mm-hmm. you get more riders, more satisfaction, mm-hmm. worker satisfaction. Mm-hmm. That's community right there, and if a better community is better for everyone.
Yes, that's what it's about.
If our listeners and your fellow employees, CTA employees, want to learn more about what you're doing and how they could overcome whatever they're suffering now, where should they go?
I give you a simple website. It's called ChicagoTransitWorker.com. One word, ChicagoTransitWorker.com. And then you can look me up, Eric Basir. I have a blog and I have a YouTube channel. I'm always out there, even by myself with a bullhorn, yelling at the boss, cursing him out. you know. So I do what I do because I want to inspire people. I'm nothing. I really am. I'm just a little alarm chirping, and they want to turn it off, pull the battery out. But we have some serious carbon monoxide poisoning going on in our house, and I'm going to keep chirping. And you can ignore me, but eventually there's going to be a reckoning at the CTA.
Well, the CTA, the conditions in the trains and some of the buses is deteriorating.
Worse.
And then, like you said, if the employees are not able to actually maintain the train and then have to clean up the train, then maintenance is going to go down. There's it's a vicious downward cycle.
It's sad.
Thank you so much, Eric Basir, local union steward of
Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 308.
For joining us on WLUW 88.7 FM.